Speaking of the basketball, I know this is in the chats a lot, and we'll get to your chats, folks, but I figured we might as well bring it up here just a little bit. The whole thing with the crowd last night, it was alluded to in Pod the Pals post-game show last night. I know I talked about it in Locked On. But guys, I wanted to bring this up. I won't name names, but I had somebody and some people inside the athletic department, inside the basketball program, reach out to me early this morning and asking for ideas on things to get the crowds in there, which I know there's other media outlets that apparently think it's stupid to have anybody complain or to bring up the crowds at games because it doesn't matter. But I was reached out to, and that kind of and I sent them a thing of like, hey, here's a bunch of ideas. Let me know if anything. But isn't that kind of like the whole thing when you start getting, Curtis, I know you've had conversations with people. It's like, when you start getting people like there and inside the program, kind of like, how do we do this? Like, we're trying things, like, what do we do? I think it kind of shows that this is a problem that needs to be addressed and that wants to be addressed by some.
Yeah, it goes to show you that the reseeding thing might have served its purpose in terms of generating funds that you didn't have, but it further broke your atmosphere at Bud Walton Arena. That's what it is. I mean, it's not that there are 7,000 people in there because that's 7,000 tickets that they were able to sell. They're all sold out. Only a third of them are being scanned. And so it's a huge issue, man. It's a major issue. And I don't give a damn about, all the millions of excuses and, the corporate this and time that. It just sucks. That's the situation. And at the end of the day, you have a Hall of Fame coach who came to Arkansas largely because of, John Tyson and everything. But a big part of it too was his understanding of what Arkansas can be and what that building can be, because he's experienced it before. And I'm sure there's a level of massive disappointment in what that's looked like there. I know for a fact that there are certain guys on that team who have been very disappointed in the turnout of the support there. And we can do the whole thing about, well, they should be playing better, or they shouldn't be playing Winthrop or whatever. If we want to lie to ourselves and act like this isn't as bad as it's ever been, then we can do that, but I'm not going to. And so when it becomes a problem to the point where the people within the program are understanding it and looking for help and ways to rectify it, when the administration and the people who have done this in the first place aren't, that just goes to show you that there's just a big time crack in the foundation here that needs to get figured out. I don't think there is a solution to the problem this year. The crowds will pick up when they play better teams. When you play Louisville, you have a good crowd in there. The SEC games, especially on the weekends or whatever, it's going to be a good atmosphere. But it's probably not going to be what it was in most cases, and they've got to get that figured out. It's not my damn job to do it. It's not John's job to do it. But I think it is interesting that folks like us are getting asked about it.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Curtis, that doing the reseeding thing, I don't know how much money it did generate for the university. I assume a decent amount, by the way. Like, I don't doubt that it did financially make sense, but you robbed Peter to pay Paul. And honestly, when it's money, I guess you really just, paid Paul and, you didn't rob Peter, but the atmosphere does suck. You effectively sacrifice your atmosphere to make some more money, which, again, you live with it. You can argue it was the right decision. I really don't even know. I'm not even here to talk about that, but I do think if you're trying to reinvigorate this atmosphere of what you have for the fans that are in attendance, you got to start with the students. And we've talked about the students a lot. And John, I know honestly, and I don't even say this, I know we joke about it, John is extremely qualified to talk about this because he's spent a lot of years in the student section. And I got to be honest, I've seen the videos. I remember when I was a fan seeing John in the student and seeing all the students going crazy and doing all these crazy stuff. Like, I remember that being a thing. So I actually do think like John is someone that can talk about this. I think you got to invigorate these students somehow, and you have to incentivize them to come to games. And I know they do every now and then. It's like, oh, hey, first 100 people get a t-shirt or whatever. You have to somehow get it to the point where it's like 100%. Like, it's weird if you're a student at the University of Arkansas if you're not going to the game. It's stunning how many times I'll be like, around, or if I'm driving or whatever, I'm like talking to kids and like, I'm like, hey, are y'all going to the game? They're just like, no, like they don't even think about it. It needs to be a cultural thing to where it is weird if you're a student at the University of Arkansas and you're not at the basketball game. I also think, I know you have to do ad reads. I know you have to, we do our ad reads. I know you have to acknowledge your sponsors and you have to do your certain segments. You have to do the fighter of the game and all that. Every single time out that you don't have something like that, I think you need to be playing as many clips as possible. And I know that they do some hype videos. I know they do some, hey, remember when this happened? I think almost every single time out, there should be clips of peak Bud Walton. And it could be like, hey, we're honoring this, 2017 game, or this, Mason Jones dropped 40 here. Every single time out, there should be all these clips talking about Arkansas basketball, celebrating the legacy of Arkansas basketball, celebrating Bud Walton Arena and what it really looks like, so that the people in the arena are seeing that, seeing what a peak Bud Walton Arena crowd looks like every single time out, and knowing what the standard is. Kids are in the crowd and they're looking at their dad. Dad, tell me about Ricky Council. He could dunk like that? Really? Like seeing all this stuff. When I was a kid, I remember being enamored by all that. I loved learning about, like, going to those games and learning about the program that I was cheering on. Like, I think that stuff is awesome. They don't really do that at Arkansas. I got to be honest with you. I know sometimes they do, but pretty much every commercial break, it's like, hey, here's the fry toss. We're going to pick that tune. We're going to do all this. We don't talk about Arkansas basketball at Bud Walton Arena. You can't blame the crowd for not being locked in on the game. You don't even talk about basketball with the crowd.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought it up, because in my pen to paper words that I wrote on InsideArkansas.com with my part 2 of how you could fix atmospheres, that was one of the things, is like, who's like the hype video? Like, who's the hype video for? Is it for the players? No. Is it for the coaches? No. The hype video is for the fans. So what do the fans want to see? They want to see the energy. They want to see the atmosphere. They want to see the peak moments of Bud Walton, because that's what gets them hyped. So it gets them ready. And, it's things like that, little things like that, that can really make a difference. And so I just look at it to where, again, it's like, I can sit here and talk about it, but what it comes down to, and I think you mentioned it, Curtis, was about you got to make Bud Walton an event. Like, it needs to be an event that nobody wants to miss. Well, I can watch it on TV. Yeah. Okay. But being there needs to be different. It needs to be different. And I feel like that's the thing where, and I know we've talked about it, but there's no excuses. I don't want to hear it. Idiots that come to me and say, like, it's always been this way. No, it hasn't. I'm not stupid. Like, we're not stupid. I've been going to basketball games my entire life at Bud Walton Arena. All these games. You think I just like woke up this season and was just like, gosh, what happened here? Like, it's not, it just is so frustrating sometimes when people are just like, I get it. Excuses can be made, but I think there just needs to be a collective effort of everybody involved. Like, fans, administration, marketing, like, hey, just communicate with each other and figure out what works. If you're the admin, talk to the fans and be like, why aren't y'all coming to games? What's the biggest reason? We're not mad. Just tell us. Oh, well, it's can't get up there. Okay. Or traffic or parking or concession prices. Like, just figure out what the issue is and then fix it. Like, that's why I just think it's so frustrating. I feel like it's an easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And all those things have existed. I know the economy is a little bit different. I understand that. And I think a big part of it is the gouging. I think I saw somebody say, and I don't know if it's true or not, I didn't look, but somebody said they were still selling like single tickets for the game late yesterday, and they were still trying to charge like $60 a pop for lower bowl. And it's like, what are you doing? I mean, when you get to a certain point there and 70% of it's available, then maybe you should consider dropping that a little bit. I think that's a huge part of the problem, is just the amount of folks that are, gobbling up all the tickets and then just not using them or trying to sell them back at just a ridiculous rate. And we've talked about all the ways that they could probably try to rectify that. Who knows if they will or whatever, but it stinks, man. I see some people who will point to what does the crowd look like at Mississippi State tonight, or, wherever else. And I think the entire point is we have put ourselves on a different level at Arkansas. There's a different standard here because Razorback fans were able to set it. And there's a reason why Bud Walton Arena is revered the way that it is. And they pop up on all these lists. There's a reason why they call it the basketball palace of Mid-America, and why my show is the Pot at the Palace. And it just feels silly now to do all that. Like the fact that, like Andy Katz, and all his lists suck, but that he had Arkansas as a top 10, most vaunted arena in the country. And you look at that and you're like, what the hell are we talking about? And so then it becomes twofold, where like John Calipari last night, he's going, okay, nobody's scared of you right now. Like, nobody's afraid to play Arkansas right now. You're not playing with toughness. You're not playing with physicality. And it's also not a scary environment. And if you don't think that impacts the basketball team, it does. And you create your own energy and everything like that. But the whole thing, it's become a running joke now of like, oh, you got to be 10 points better than Arkansas to beat them in Bud Walton Arena. And then I saw somebody say, oh, now you got to be 16 3-pointers better than Arkansas to beat them in Bud Walton Arena or this or that. It's just gone so far downhill, and it goes to the point of, do we want to accept that, okay, it would just be like everybody else and just accept that this is a thing, or we're talking about, why can't you go to the games? It's you gotta make the drive, or I got work the next day or whatever. I think instead of asking why you're not able to do it, and ask why you were in the past, because this was different. There were several thousand more people in the stands for games exactly like what we had last night just a couple years ago. So for all those people who were going, who aren't now, what has changed? And then maybe that's exactly where we can start the process here. But it does stink, man.
Yeah, and you nailed it. And it's all about the standard, man. And I know we talk about this a lot, and I'm sure some people are, some people get annoyed when we talk about it or are wondering why. And that's really what it is about, is we are holding it to that standard. And like you said, the standard is not what they have going on at Mississippi State. The standard is not what they have going on at Wisconsin, what they have going on at just random, programs around the country. Your standard is literally the very, very best in college basketball. To have one of the worst possible atmospheres for teams to come into, the most daunting, the most heart-wrenching, scary places. You have people covering up their ears. That is the standard. And again, you can't tell us this is how it's always been. All of us know, and we're young. There's older people who have been going to Bud Walton since its inception, that have been seeing the program, even when it's not even rolling, have unreal atmospheres, unreal crowds that people tell their grandkids about. You can't tell us that this is always the case. And so if you're mad at us for feeling the way we feel, or mad at us for talking about it, just understand that's what this is about, is holding it to that standard and wanting it to be what it is supposed to be and what it was meant to be and what it is capable of being. And I have no doubt, though, I know we say it all the time, but it will, on the right occasion, still be awesome. They will still have a great crowd where it ends up being loud and actually will be great. I'm sure we'll see one or two of them this year, but we can't pretend like that is a real thing that we can be judged by if we only do it once every 3 years or once a year, or, only on the right occasion here and there. I think we need to start taking this very personally.
Well, and I want to continue to talk about, because I think there is some very important points to cover on this. But I want to remind everybody that we're brought to you by our friends over at Drain Masters of Arkansas. Maybe they can work over at the U of A and drain the swamp that's needed. I'm sure that they could make that happen, because they are the best in the business when it comes to professional and reliable service with all plumbing and drain cleaning needs that you may need in the Northwest Arkansas area, the River Valley area, Oklahoma, and beyond. And it could be your residential. It could be your home. It could also be your business. It doesn't matter. They can take care of it. So to request a service today, give them a call at 479-646-5585. That's 479-646-5585. Or you can scan that QR code right there on your screen, take it to the website, and you can request a service there. And the best part about it is it doesn't matter how much you need, how much service you need from the Drain Masters of Arkansas. If you tell them that the fellas of Inside Arkansas sent you, you get 10% off. 10% off all your services. Doesn't matter how big or small. 10% off when you just say Inside Arkansas sent you. So get it done with Drain Masters of Arkansas. They're going to have you covered, as they do the best job here in the state of Arkansas. But yeah, continuing on with our conversation, guys, about the crowd. Because again, I think it's one of those deals to where I agree with you, Curtis. It's probably not going to get fixed this year. But I think maybe one of the more disappointing things is this was a problem last year, and it doesn't seem like anything was countered. You know what I'm saying? There was just no emphasis put on it. There was no over the top. And I think that's what I talked a little bit about on my Locked On. I think that's the disappointing thing for me, is it was identified as an issue last year. It was known as an issue last year. And at least publicly, in any regard we've seen, there's been nothing tried. I saw, what was it, yesterday or the day before? I know it sounds stupid, but Missouri, they were doing a thing where it's hey, for $5, you are allowed to bring in any bucket that you want, any size bucket you want, and we will fill it with popcorn. For $5, you could bring in one of those buckets that they jump in at the Thanksgiving game, at the Cowboys games for the charity. You could bring in that, fill it with popcorn for $5. I'm that's stupid. But you know what? It's something new and something cool, and they're trying. That's my thing, is just put forth the effort that you're trying to do things. I saw Quinn, which we'll get to your super chat, because he DM'd me about dollar beer nights and stuff, which hey, that'd be one thing, but
Providence does it.
Yeah, and I'm you can't sit there and tell me a game like last night, you could say, hey, half price on all concessions. You're still going to make money. Like, you're still going to make money because what are so many families of four coming into? They're like, oh, do we eat dinner at the game or do we eat dinner before the game? They're like, well, we're not going to eat dinner at the game. I'm not spending $100 on average food and overpriced drinks. But if you make it a half price, that suddenly is like, well, we can just eat at the game. Hot dogs will be only $2. Drinks will only be $3. Whatever it is. It's like those are just the little small efforts that could be made to at least show everybody you're not going to get it right. Maybe it doesn't click, but you're trying. That's what I want to see is just the effort that you're trying.
And here we are talking about, let's give them some discounted concessions or whatever. They're tacking that 3% fee onto what you do buy in there. So and that's not enough. But here's my bigger picture. It's two things. One, I understand the impact that it could have on, the staff, the players and everything like that. Like you want to feel supported. And I know Razorback fans out there do it. So again, this is not the whole, you're attacking fans who can't afford to go. No, it's not that at all. It's a system that's broken that has to be fixed here. They've got to rectify that. I think that's very important for the long-term viability here. My other thing about it is like, you're not going to do a reseeding again after this year. And so they did that because they needed some funds to get ready for this revenue share and all this other stuff. And so where are they going to come up with that moving forward? And when I look at this, like, it's a good thing that your tickets are sold, but when you only have a third of your seats full in there, what are the profits looking like from everything else that goes into it? You're talking about concessions and everything else there. And so if they're all of a sudden making far less money as a program because nobody's actually showing up and participating with the support there, well, what will this look like for the basketball program moving forward? Because right now, Arkansas basketball is on a different playing field than Arkansas football in terms of their ability to compete with their peers. And they can demand a little bit more in the rev share department percentage-wise because of what they do, the success they have, what they generate, and all that. But if that starts going by the wayside with the finances that you're bringing in there, all of a sudden you're going to see that stuff starting to get cut a little bit too. And then are we going to have to start accepting mediocrity out of the basketball program, which has been one of the saviors while we've been dealing with all this nonsense for football? So me as a basketball guy, I really hope they figure this out, because the last thing I want is to be in a situation where all of a sudden we're doing the deal where, yeah, boy, it'd be nice to get that guy, but they've only got this much in rev share. And, hopefully Cal can keep operating out in that third lane, even though he doesn't like doing bidding wars. That's the kind of stuff that will piss me off. And so there is a trickle down to it, from the attendance to the revenue that's generated to the piece of the pie that you get for your program. And so I understand why people over there might be saying, hey, what do we got to do to fix this? We're open to ideas. I don't blame them, honestly.
It always cracks me up whenever people from other fan bases will come in and be like, oh, I mean, come on, guys, you can't expect them to sell out the stadium. And it's like, no. They have already sold out the stadium. Make that clear. And that's an important distinction that we have to make every single time we do this conversation. Mm-hmm. This is not shaming the fans for not buying tickets. It is shaming the people who have already bought tickets for not showing up there. And I just need someone to one day sit me down like a 5-year-old and explain it to me why you cannot have stuff in place that incentivizes people who own season tickets to use them, that they don't have a certain requirement of times they have to show up, or that there isn't any follow-up. Like, for instance, I know like the Razorback Foundation sometimes will call people. If you have a guy and you see that he is not showing up to games, get that feedback. Because like you were saying, John, find out what the problem is, find out what the reason is, and identify it. I feel like there should be constant communication. Hey, you only went to one game this year. You have 10 tickets. And those tickets were only used at one game this year. WTF? What's going on? What is it can we do to get you to the game? How can we help you? And I don't know, because I don't know what makes these corporations tick. The people that have these tickets at Bud Walton, I don't know what it is that's going to incentivize them to come to games, but there has to be some type of accountability. I don't think that's that. I just don't know why that's crazy. And I get it. You would rather, for the University of Arkansas, they're good to sell the tickets because they make the money. All that's fine. But like you said, is it really even beneficial if those guys aren't going to games and buying concessions and buying T-shirts and doing whatever? It really is kind of crazy. And so I don't know why the university is so afraid to like hold those people accountable and be like, hey, if you aren't coming to the games, we can't keep giving you tickets, because we have to at some point have people show up to our basketball games.
Yeah, and I know we could spend all day talking about this stuff because there's so many things that could be done and everything. I know people in chats and out there. But let's just like looking at it from this whole perspective, and I think we can all agree with this. Like I talked about on my lockdown, I'm like, it needs to be bullied, not the people. the situation. And so from here on out, like when I go to these games, I'm going to take a video and a picture and post it on social media of the poor crowds, because it's like, to me, that's the best effective way to get the message out of like, hey, you're getting roasted by people. People are like, geez, what's going on over there? Until you fix the problem. So I'm going to bully the situation until somebody just mans up and says, hey, let's do this. Let's make this happen, instead of just sitting back and shrugging your shoulders. We don't understand why people aren't coming. Have you talked to them? No. Okay, then what do you expect? Like, it's just the way it's going to be.